Marissa, before we begin, I have to ask a serious question.
What?
Why are you in my camera shot?
Okay. Well, first of all, rude. Secondly, we're joined today by a really special guest.
Ooh.
And I'm
Do I
very
know this person?
excited. You do, but not as well as me.
I don't know about that.
Well,
Not as well as I.
Ooh, and you got
so
corrected that
it
fast.
begins. We're here with my mother, Gail Hyatt.
Hey, Gail.
Well, thanks for having me.
Happy Monday.
Thank you.
We are excited to have you on Focus on This today as our first guest as the new host.
3 people in the studio.
I know. I love it.
I had to have you on.
Well,
Yeah, Marissa was
We'll
like,
see.
oh my gosh, we need Gail to come here and talk about this topic.
Yeah.
So I said, all right,
Because
let's
it's
do
near
it.
and dear to your heart, and I think it's an important one. And everybody, is kind of on this road of starting to think about their goals for the new year. And I feel like there's a whole group of people who we kind of don't talk to much here at Full Focus. And that kind of a person is like you, which is somebody who's a little bit reluctant to set goals, to try to go after goals. And so today, that's what we're here to talk about with you.
well, I'm happy to talk about it.
We are so
My
excited.
guess is there might be even more people in my camp. We'll see.
than in ours.
Yeah, in the sense that they're more reluctant goal setters or even resistant goal setters or even rebellious non-goal setters.
I like that. Rebellious.
So we'll see. We'll
That's
see.
pretty
Although,
The 8 in you is coming out. You're like, let's go.
Let's do it.
given this community, I might be wrong, but
Well,
we'll see.
here's what I do know for sure is that the people who are listening know somebody who is probably a reluctant, rebellious.
They're probably married to
whatever.
that person.
Probably married to that person if they are in our world. So before we even dive in, I just want to, encourage you, take a second, share this episode. If you've got somebody in your life who you know has either struggled with goal setting, has been resistant to it, or straight up has refused and is very rebellious.
So we're talking about Confessions of a Reluctant Goal Setter.
Woo-hoo!
That
With
would be me.
the one and only Gail Hyatt. Welcome to another episode of Focus on This, the most productive podcast on the internet, so you can banish distractions, get the right stuff done, and finally start loving Mondays. I'm Marissa Hyatt here with Ken Freire and Gail Hyatt.
Yeah.
Yay!
What's up, Gail?
All right, Mom. So before we dive in, I just want to kind of talk about you for a minute and introduce you.
Okay.
So obviously you're my mother.
Shocker.
Okay. Yeah.
That's why you were calling her mom?
Yeah. Can you tell the resemblance here? And you're pretty amazing. We have a lot of like Gail-isms around here. One that a lot of our audience might know is that people lose their way when they lose their why. And that is a Gail Hyatt original quote.
I don't know about original, but it's been credited to me, but nothing is really original.
It's a Gail
I'm sure I
Hyatt.
heard it somewhere.
I think it's a Gail Hyatt original. Okay.
She's been saying it to you since you were like 2.
Yeah.
It's been-
Well, no, but there's a lot of other Gailisms. But so your kind of personality is extroverted. You're a total people person. You're a little bit rebellious. Like I think I get some of my rebellion from you.
True.
For sure. Okay, it's a baby of the family thing, I
Right.
think. But you were a good student and all of that. But where did this kind of like
Reluctancy.
reluctancy
with goal setting come from.
Like, or did you see that early in your life, or did that show up when you were later married because of Dad's personality?
Let me go back to say that what attracted me to Michael as a boyfriend, later husband, was that he had the qualities that I didn't have. And I was very spontaneous, spur of the moment, flexible, go with the flow. And he was very disciplined from day one, very mature. His most of his friends were quite a bit older than he was. In fact, most of them were even adults. He hung around a lot with adults.
Because you guys met in college.
We met in college. And so that, I think even on a subconscious level, I realized, okay, he can balance me. Yeah. And I think he felt the same way about me, that I could balance him, bring more fun, more spontaneity into the relationship.
Right.
And so as true to form, opposites attract. And so we were attracted. And what first attracts you later annoys you.
Yes, preach.
And then what later you appreciate. So I think you start out with attraction, and then it goes to annoyance, and then it goes to appreciation.
Oh, that's good.
That's a good Gailism right there.
There you go. I think Michael that's original with him.
I heard it from you first, so I'm going to credit you.
We know he got all his good stuff. It's from you anyway.
But during that annoying stage, that a lot of these differences really, really came up. And he was always was a person back in the 80s who had the daytimer or the Franklin planner, always planned his life, planned his days from day one. Yeah. And he was a student of productivity tools like that. And he always wanted to be more efficient. And meanwhile, I'm out having a blast and raising kids and actually being miserable some of the time and, whatever. But that could not have been any farther from me than it was. So then fast forward to 2015, 2013, if I'm not mistaken, is when the Best Year Ever course was created. Yeah. And I thought it was fabulous. I just thought, okay, this is going to do well. This is going to meet the needs of so many people. And, but it was for others. It wasn't really for me. And so when 2 years later, I never went through the course myself. I was happy for him to go through it, teach it. I even attended the seminars if they were taught, and I loved walking around and helping people work through the exercises. And then one Christmas, my brother came to visit. So I have a brother who is 2.5 years older than I am, and he comes to stay with us every Christmas. It's just so fun to have him. And he was going through a big transition in his life. And so he wanted to sit down and go through the course together with Michael and myself. And so they both challenged me, well, you got to do it too. And so I thought, okay, well, I'll go through it just because he was going through it. And up until that point, I really was rebellious about it. Like, I am not going to do this. I don't want to do it. It's your thing. And so lo and behold, as I was going through the exercises, I was discovering things about myself that I hadn't known, because all of a sudden the goals or the aspirations and dreams and desires that were being called out of me were really mine.
Right.
And so they weren't his. So let's see, we got married in 1978. And so this is 2015. So over all those years, I had learned to kind of adapt myself to his way of living. Yeah. And so it was all about supporting him and all of that. And of course, having kids, it's all about the kids. So I kind of got lost somewhere in the shuffle. And
do you feel like that's because some of the rebelliousness that you were feeling was because you didn't want to conform to kind of his way even more?
Yeah, I wanted, even on a subconscious level, I wanted to be my own person.
Yeah.
And so that wasn't my identity. That wasn't what lit me up or anything.
Right.
So, but going through the exercises, I was discovering some amazing things that I thought, wow, this is really just me, not him. And the way that the questions are asked and the exercises you go through, it really does call out of you how you see yourself and how you want to see yourself. Right. And that was a whole new experience.
So what year was this, the first year?
2000. Well, this was 2015. So, so it had already been out a couple years. Yeah. So that was really fun. And as a result of that, I set some goals for myself. One, I had been painting for a couple of years at this point, and I did not grow up painting or thinking I had any artistic talent whatsoever. And I really enjoyed it. It delighted me. And so somewhere along the line, somebody said, well, why don't you sell some of your paintings? And I'm like, well, I don't know. I just doing it for myself. So one of my goals was to reproduce a couple of my paintings and sell them. And I did. There's a way that you can reproduce them where they look like a real painting, and you can embellish them a little bit. Yeah. And I sold 10 of them like that, and so
awesome.
It was just so fun. So that was a specific goal that I was working toward.
So when you were at kind of this moment with Dad, where he's created this whole course around goal setting, you're not wired, that way, or so you thought. And you're kind of, doing it in support of him and saying, okay, like, I'm here for you. And that's kind of it. I love being around people and all that, but I'm not here for myself. I'm not interested in this for myself because, was there fear there? Was there what was the sense of reluctantness?
I didn't see how fitting into a system, fitting into a course, going through all the steps that are required in a course could be compatible with a person who's very spontaneous, who's very flexible, who doesn't want to be in a box. It felt to me, without knowing it, without experiencing it, I assumed that I would feel like I'm being squeezed into a box. Yeah. And that I just couldn't handle. I just didn't want
and
that.
I think that this is so common for people. I think that if you're not somebody who is a super, super high achiever like Dad, or a lot of the people in our audience, there can be this fear that if I set goals, then I'm boxing myself in. Mm-hmm. Or if I set goals, then it's primarily because of what other people want for my life. I don't really get a say in it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I felt like I was going to have to come up with goals that he would approve or that others would approve of, and not what was really true to me. Yeah. And, just to put a little context into this, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Strength Finders test. I think it's a Gallup organization tool. And there's 32 different strengths. And of Michael's top 5, achiever is probably number 1, or definitely in his top 5. I can't remember exactly what number it is, but that comes as no surprise to those of you who know him. For me, it is, I believe it was 32.
It was dead last.
I think it was dead last. It's just not something that
and
I
what
think
is your top?
My top is flexibility.
Yeah. Which is probably
his dead last. It's his 31 or something. Yeah. I don't know. I mean,
it's not dead last. He's like, hey.
Yeah. So it's so fascinating because
that is so interesting.
And so we've had to, we've been to some marriage counseling and tried to figure out how to work together, being so different. But again, opposites attract, and we need each other. But
I think it is really easy to think that you should be with somebody, or be in a partnership with somebody who shares the same strengths as you. And I think that this is a really big misconception, because it often is much more interesting, for sure, and much better when you have those complementary things where you don't have what he has and he doesn't have what you have, and so you kind of complement each other in that way.
It's definitely interesting. And I would say, for those of you who are also married to your opposites, which is probably most people, the one word that I would give to you to live by is curiosity. Ooh. Stay curious about the other person, and don't try to make that person into you or to what you think you want, but be curious and fascinated with your partner, and just because there's something even at a biochemical level that drew you to that person initially. And so
and what I like to think about is that every season of life, they are learning and they're growing.
Exactly.
And you have to recognize that, I should learn who this person is becoming in this season of life.
Don't freeze frame somebody.
So really for example, my wife, we have 4 kids right now, and she's staying home. She's learning a lot about herself, and I'm learning this new person. I was like, I'm married to a new person now.
That's right. Yeah.
So how do I stay curious? I love it.
I have heard Dad say about you, Mom, I've been married to, 5 women, and they're all your mother.
I'm on my 5th marriage now.
Yeah, exactly. Well, today we've got 5 realizations that you experience going through our goal setting process. And as somebody who, this is not your natural bent, this is not what you would say, oh yeah, I'm just going to go goal set. That's not your thing. But through this process of really supporting Dad and your brother, you had kind of 5 major realizations. And so I think these are really helpful for those of you, like I said, who are listening, who either you yourself are feeling these things, or you've got somebody in your life who is. So the first one is goal setting looks different for each and every person. And so can you talk about what you mean by this, Mom?
I think some of it we've already talked about, but the other part of this is that I'm not a business person.
Yeah.
So I do a lot in my family. I do a lot with my church. I do a lot in my community. I do a lot with my in-laws. I mean, I'm very busy. I have a very full life, but I don't have business goals.
Right.
And so all the goals that I have are, personal, intellectual, physical, spiritual, all the different other domains besides business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so work. So I think that that's one thing to notice, that you're going to be different. And then just based on your personality, what excites you, what's risky to you, all those different things when you're going through that template is designing your goals. Yeah. I think that everybody is different. And so it's okay. And we don't have to be a Michael Hyatt. We don't have to be a Marissa. Marissa is very good with her goals and following and using the planner to accomplish those goals. And she's very goal driven, but I'm not. And so, but that doesn't mean I don't have goals.
Right.
I absolutely 100% depend on the planner to get me through life. Yeah. That is my goal. It's me. It's my heart.
Yeah. Well, I think that this is really true, because I think that it's easy to think, well, this is just not my personality to do goal setting. Mm-hmm. But what I want to remind people is, like, that doesn't mean that you just don't have to dream. Like, you can be a non-goal setter or a reluctant goal setter and still have major aspirations for your life. And I would argue that most people do, who are walking around, like, that's what's giving them purpose. That's what's giving them drive, whether they call it a aspiration, an intention, a goal, a dream. There's all different words that we put on this. And obviously here at Full Focus, we've created a whole system, a course and a live event to help you in this process. It's a little bit structured. But one of the things that I love that we do in this is we allow you to really dream. And so it really is about you and making it work for you and your personality. So it's not going to be this exact same for every single person.
Sometimes you have to use a different word.
Yeah.
I don't like the word goal, I aspiration, intention. I love those a lot more. So sometimes it's just a word game.
Totally. It's so true.
Because based on what you said, is when you think about goals, you correlate it with business, and you're like, well, I'm not a business person, so I'm not going to do that.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. What is number 2 for us?
So number 2 is that it enables you, the goal setting process enables you to excavate you.
Ooh.
And I love that word excavate. And that's exactly how I felt. I felt like going through the process, especially that first time, it was like the dirt was getting dug away, and underneath was this treasure. Yeah. And I loved discovering me. And it was the first time in many, many years that I'd kind of given myself permission to find out who I am and what I would love to do and what excites me and what I'm passionate about.
Well, there's so many competing voices in our lives, whether it's your spouse. Okay. Like obviously I don't have a spouse, but I can imagine that would be a very prominent voice in your life who you feel pressured, okay, I've got to do this because they think that's important or whatever. We have bosses who are doing this, children, coworkers, friends,
Marissa.
social media. Social media. There's all kinds of people in your life, those some and some that you don't know, who are trying to dictate how you spend your time and what you go after what your life looks like. And it is so rare that we slow down enough to ask ourselves the question, what do I actually want?
Exactly. Especially if you are a people pleaser.
Yeah.
And if your personality is that you don't want conflict, you don't want to upset anybody or anything, then you're going to just go, and if flexibility is your top, strength, then you're going to want to just lose yourself in a way in other people. And it's not very fulfilling when you choose that way.
No, but the goal setting process does provide an opportunity for you to ask yourself those big questions of what do I want? What is important to me? What do I want my life this next year to look like for me?
The other thing that I just remembered that came about when we were going through the process of going through all those questions with my brother and with Michael is that they actually got excited when I was coming out of, and discovering who I was and excavating myself, they wanted to support it. And so they'd say, yeah, I really like that. I saw that in you when you did this and that. And so they were, rather than to try to force me back into some box, they really wanted me to come out of that box.
Awesome.
And that was kind of fun to see, because I never really gave anybody the opportunity to do that for me.
That's awesome.
I love that.
So what I'm hearing is that while you're doing that, also make sure you have a support system that can help you see.
It helps for sure.
For you to get out of the box.
I love doing it. I think, and since then, Michael and I have done it together, and I love doing it together because, again, if you stay curious about each other and you just are fascinated and let that energy run the process, it's really fun.
Yeah.
And it brings you closer as a couple, I think, what it did
sure.
for us.
What would be the third realization?
So as I went through the process, I think the third thing that I realized is that it's okay to have desires for your life. And when you are a supportive wife, when you're a mother, and all your attention is going to taking care of everybody else, sometimes you don't think you have permission to have your own desires and your own life. In fact, I have to tell one little quick story. When I was about exactly this time, in fact, now that I'm thinking about it, it may have been a result of going through this. I sent out an email to the daughters that had children. And I said, I would love to babysit for your kids. I mean, I love them so much. However, I would like to be asked ahead of time and, given the opportunity to say no, because up until that point, I would have described myself as always on call, like whatever anybody wanted.
Which I think this is really common for women in particular, and I'm sure across the board for, grandmothers.
Yep. And it gave me courage to say, oh, wait, if I want to paint, then I have to have a designated time to paint, which means I can't babysit during that time. I'm going to attend a class, or, I've got a commitment that I've got to fulfill. And I got big resistance from them. Like, this is so selfish. How can you do this? And, and I know now is that what those moms were going through was a really hard time of motherhood.
Yeah.
And so it was scary. Their little lifesaver was maybe not going to be available to them. And so we worked it out. Now it's a beautiful arrangement. But at the time, just the shock of that was really tough. But I did learn it's okay to have desires for your own life.
And ultimately, you were able to explain that to them of like, this isn't just me, being selfish and saying I don't want to be with your kids. This is ultimately about me excavating me and continuing to cultivate those desires and dreams that I have within myself. And ultimately, we were all supportive of you.
And guess what?
But it shook things up.
You're more inspiring to your family and close friends when you are your best self. Yeah. And that's what I think I've noticed over the years is that when I get lost and I'm diminished, then I'm not very inspiring. Yeah. And when I get to be my true self and I'm out there, then everybody wins.
So true. I love that.
But what I love about that too is that no matter what age you are, you can always keep growing, right? You can always keep learning more about yourself, discovering yourself in any season of life. I'm
excited to go through the process this year because a lot has happened in the last year. And so I get to see, who am I this year?
Yeah. I do think that's true. Like each year we change and evolve, and it's why it's an annual process, to go through this. Okay. So just real quick recap. We have talked about goal setting looks different for each and every person. The goal setting process enables you to excavate you, and it's okay to have desires for your life. And so number 4 is when your goals come to fruition, a newfound confidence is created.
That is so true. But by me defining things that I want for myself and then going forward and making them a reality, I all of a sudden hold my head up higher. I'm just much more of a confident person. Yeah. And it's not the same as arrogance. Yeah. It's not selfish. It's just confident. And you have more.
Why do you think that is?
Well, you begin to see, first of all, that you're a person who can follow through with something. Mm-hmm. That was always a hard thing for me. I'm easily distracted, and squirrel, squirrel, that whole thing. But when I set something, I knew that it was in line with me. Yeah. So it wasn't somebody else's goal for myself, but it was something I truly did want. And when I went forward and did the little baby steps that got me there in the end, then I was confident. I was like, wow, I can do something else. And it really feeds off of itself.
So true. I feel like when you go after something, one of the things, I think it might be in the planner, here, open to the first page. I think there's a quote in there. It's from Dad that essentially says, it's not about, the goal that you're trying to achieve. It's about who you become in the process. And I think that is really true, that goal setting, sure, like you're going after things and you're trying to, accomplish some awesome, great things in your life, but that's not really what it's about. Like, that's all awesome, but it's really about the process of you growing. And part of that is proving to yourself, oh my gosh, like I can do things.
You're supporting yourself.
I can do, whether it's a hard or difficult, goal that you're going after, and it should put you outside of your comfort zone. That takes a lot of courage. You have to show up for yourself in a way that you would have never had to show up in your life otherwise. And that's what I love about goal setting, is it really calls out of you somebody that you could have never been otherwise.
Awesome. So we got 3 so far, or 4.
Yeah.
What's the last one, Gail?
Well, this one may sound a little bit familiar if you're familiar with some of the Michael Hyatt material, but it allows you to go through life without drifting to a destination that you don't want. And as he says, no one ever drifted to a destination that they would have chosen. And so you get to see the direction you're going, and you get to continually recalibrate. Okay, am I still headed in the direction I want to go? And you end up where you want to end up, as opposed to just like, woo, and the next thing you know, you're, going through a divorce, you're 80, 90 pounds heavier than you want to be. You're depressed. You're laying on the couch, watching TV all the time, whatever the undesirable destination is that you might want. And this way, no, you're intentional, but because you have decided where you want to go.
Yeah. You really, I have this, I've talked about it several times on the podcast, but I have what I call my morning manifestation recording that I listen to. And one of the things that I say in that is, you're the creator of your life. You're designing the future that you want by the choices that you make today. And I think it's really easy to think that what we do today has no effect on where we're heading. And what we're trying to say is calling you back and saying, okay, you have to know where you want to go. Mm-hmm. And then you've got to calibrate your present experience to that future and start to create that today. Mm-hmm. Like that future doesn't have to be, 10 years in the future or by the end of the year, whenever you're looking. It really can be today. And the problem is, though, if you don't know where you're going, then you're totally just going to end up drifting.
Yeah. And I love the planner to help me get there.
Yeah.
That, I think if there is anybody listening who struggles with any kind of attention deficit syndrome type thing, I've never been diagnosed with that, but I do know that I'm easily distracted. And I think that having the full focus planner has been a lifesaver to me. And I love it. Like I love opening it up every day when I want to get something off of my mind. I need to make that phone call. Oh, I need to do this. I jot it down. I prioritize. I reevaluate each week. It's just so helpful to make sure, again, that I'm not drifting, that I'm really continuing to head where I want to go.
Yeah. And what's great about that is that you're saying the planner is not just for the goal achievement Michael Hyatt's out there in the world.
Mine probably looks different than his.
Ooh.
You know what I mean? Like his is, he's even, his printing style is like beautiful and I'm kind of scribbly or whatever, but, and they're going to look different, but they help with the same ultimate end.
I love it.
That's so good. Well, I love this because, we've got the new year ahead of us. We're, a few weeks away at this point from New Year's, and people are going to start thinking about goal setting and thinking about what are those intentions that I want to set for this next year of my life. And I just want to encourage you, just like my mom has done today, that, goal setting can be for you regardless of your personality, regardless of whether you consider yourself a high achiever or not. You can create this experience for yourself and design the future that you're looking to create. And so, I just want to thank you for coming on, because I think that this is a really important message for our listeners and for our community to hear that we don't often talk about. We're very much on, more on Dad's side of the equation. And I think it's important to talk about the other side. So
I do have a final thought.
I was about to ask you before we go.
She's been prepping for this final thought.
Actually, it just came to me.
Good.
So my final thought is twofold. If you are the high achiever, and you're either married to or working with someone who is a reluctant goal setter and is not necessarily a high achiever, number one, be patient. And what I would do if you want to try to go through the process with that person is to couch it as an experiment.
Oh,
Like, let's try this as an experiment this year or this week or whatever.
Yeah. You're not committed to it.
You're not committed, not at all. Let's just try it as an experiment. Yeah. And if you are that person who is reluctant, resistant, rebellious, whatever your stance is, just give it a try. Try it as an experiment. And you may discover there's one or two things that you really liked about it. Or you may say, absolutely not. I'm just not ready for it. My prediction is that you're just not quite ready yet. Because I think that regardless of your personality type, regardless of your bent, that this can work for you. But just give it a try as an experiment and see what you learn, Pay attention to it like you would an experiment.
Oh, it's so good.
Love it.
Mic drop.
And this is where we plug in your best year ever live.
Yes. So we do have our annual goal setting event coming up on January 5th. It is virtual, so no matter where you live in the world, you can join us. We are super excited. Are you planning to be there?
I'll be there.
Okay,
absolutely.
Awesome. Well, we'll be there. We're actually emceeing the event, so we're going to have a blast. Yeah, hopefully you knew that.
I do now.
Yeah. And we are so excited about this. You can actually get a free ticket which is normally $197. You can get it for free right now. If you go to literally go to the Full Focus store. And if you get Full Focus Goal Setting, which is our goal setting course, you'll get a free ticket to your Best Year Ever Live. So we would love to see you there. Ken and I will be there having a blast.
Oh,
so
be fun.
We're excited to ring in the new year together and with all of you. Well, this is awesome, Mom. Thanks so much for joining us on Focus on This. We have had a blast, and I feel like this is a great message that I'm excited for our audience to hear.
Thanks for having me. I had a blast.
Thanks for joining us on Focus on This.
This is the most productive podcast on the internet, so please share it with your friends and be sure to join us in the Full Focus Planner community. Mom might even make an appearance in there.
I would love to.
And that way you can benefit from all of our creativity, encouragement, and you can, if you're a reluctant goal setter, get in there and find your other people who are also reluctant goal setters.
I'd love to know how many are out there that are in the community.
Go in and post in the Full Focus Planner community.
Yeah. And if you are, we should put a post right there. I'll put it right after the show. Put a nice little thing like how many of you are reluctant goal setters like Gail.
Ooh, I like that.
And just see how many comments come. But we'll be here next time to talk about the beginner's guide to goal setting.
Yeah. So if you're brand new to goal setting, or if you're thinking about the new year and you're just kind of not sure where to get started, that episode is absolutely going to be for you. So join us next Monday.
May I say one more thing? Oh. Trust the process.
Oh.
So when you see this is the beginner's guide, or in the front of the Full Focus Planner, there's, tutorials, or there's the course, just trust the process. Don't be so rebellious that you miss out on what's really there for you.
That's a good final thought. I love it.
It's a final thought.
Final. All right. So until then,
stay focused.